You're here, I'm queer, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited. She's here, she's queer, get used to it, and she is part of my world. I am making Ursula from The Little Mermaid. Now, before we give our voices to Ursula, this video is actually a collaboration with Popin Atelier. I made Ursula and she made Ariel, so definitely make sure to check her video out. I will leave all of her links down below. And now let's get into the Sea Witch. So me and Popin's collaboration actually does not have anything to do with the live-action Little Mermaid yet. But we're actually creating Ursula and Ariel flipped. So I'm making a nice Ursula and she's making a, I don't want to say necessarily evil, a misunderstood Ariel. But I cannot wait to see Miss Halle Bailey. I cannot wait to see her costume, her fins, her hair, everything. That I need this CGI to be flowing. The same goes with Miss Ursula. I mean, I still think that a drag queen should have played her. Because, you know, I don't know if you guys knew, but Ursula, the animated character, was actually inspired by Divine, a drag queen. Like mannerisms, makeup, all of that. And so I thought that that's how it should have been, to kind of like use it as a sign of empowerment for the queer community. I guess they're not ready yet, you know, and that's alright. We'll keep on waiting. You guys know I love villains so much. Growing up, yes, I was obsessed with the princesses. But now I'm grown, I see myself in the villains a lot more. You can't have a main character without a villain. My top 3 villains are definitely Maleficent, Ursula, and also the Evil Queen. Since my Ursula is the good Ursula, she's not the evil sea witch, even though she does have powers, so I really wanted to go for a Rococo inspired Ursula. I really wanted her to have kind of like the Baroque French architecture around her body, a lot of like filigree, a lot of like grandeur, symmetry, just elaborate and ornate designs here and there. So here is my sketch of Miss Ursula, the good sea witch, and I believe I started sketching this in November. I really wanted to go for soft Rococo kind of makeup. Well, this is definitely not going to be Divine inspired, unfortunately. The Marie Antoinette hair. So overall, the color story, I tried my best to kind of keep it similar. The only thing that I had struggled with is whether to give her gold or silver metal. But usually Rococo and Baroque elements, like the metal, are usually in gold. They're always gilded gold. So I don't know if it's gonna work. And I mean, obviously her shell is gold. So we'll see. But yeah, I cannot wait for you guys to see the overall process. Lots of accidents that happened throughout this video. Overall, I had so much fun making this doll, and it's probably my new favorite now for 2020. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's get to it. So the victim for this video is going to be this curvy made-to-move Barbie, and as you can see, she's missing her lower half because it is the one I used for my Chun-Li doll in 2018, 2 years ago, I can't believe it. But I decided that we need to recycle, and so I will be using her for our Ursula. I'm sure that it was expected that I use the Baroque doll that I got from the thrift store, from Savers, that I featured in my thrifted doll video. However, I really want an articulated Ursula, at least for the arms and upper body. And so why not reuse this one? And I'm actually reserving the Baroque doll for something special. As you can see, she has the red hair, which is kind of funny because she pretty much looks like Ariel, and I'm gonna turn her into Ursula. But I love this doll's expression. It's just very gentle. I love everything about it. And so I really thought that she would be perfect for Ursula because we are going for the Rococo, like really gentle type of look. So unfortunately, I need to go ahead and remove her hair. You know, it's a beautiful red hair, but it has to go. We are creating a beautiful powdered wig for her. Sometimes removing doll hair can be quite stubborn. I didn't have to do it for this one, but you can go ahead and submerge it with hot water, or you can also heat it up with your blow dryer to kind of make things easier. And now her hair is completely removed. I actually want to go ahead and move on to her body because that one requires a lot of work. So let's go ahead and take our regular kitchen foil. I got this one from the dollar store. You don't have to be fancy with this one. And we are gonna go ahead and build the body. My main goal for this one is to keep her as light as possible. Epoxy sculpt is very, very heavy on its own. So I tried to make the inside of the body to be foil as much as possible. And over here, I'm just hot gluing it. It doesn't really have to be secured all the way, and little by little I'm just adding more foil here and there. I also went ahead and hammered it a little bit to really make it dense without making it too heavy. So this part is actually quite crucial because this is where we establish the shape, the size, and everything like that we want in the end. Obviously, we are adding a layer of epoxy, like a slab of epoxy after this, so the size will be a little bigger than this one. And here we have the shape for Ursula. So hammering it makes the entire thing more dense so that there's no air that's trapped inside. So now let's go ahead and apply our epoxy sculpt. As always, I'm gonna go ahead and mix 2 equal parts together so that it cures over time. Usually it roughly cures in 24 hours. Yes, this was a lot of epoxy sculpt. If you guys followed me on Instagram, you know that overall this doll has 4 pounds of epoxy sculpt on her. Yes, and you'll see why. And the struggle was real trying to get more. For this first layer of epoxy sculpt, I just want to make sure that every single foil part is covered. So it didn't really matter if the clay was too thin because we are going to be adding a lot more later. So the main goal is to cover every single foil and that nothing is showing. I do want to match her torso to the rest of her body, so I'm going to add more volume to her chest and also her neck. So for those Disney lovers over there, comment down below who is your favorite Disney villain. Like I said, I love Maleficent, Ursula, and the Evil Queen. And for Ursula, I love her so much because of her obviously iconic song, her powers are iconic, and then how they animated her is really, really well done, and it's so detailed. Ugh, I love it. And after a day, everything should be completely dry and cured, and so we can actually hold it and maneuver it around. And now let's go ahead and add her tentacles. And this is kind of the reason why this whole project took 6 weeks. I was trying my best to figure out how to make it articulated. At first, I tried it out with foam clay I discovered from Sumerian Dolls on Instagram, and she made hair with it. So I'm like, alright, maybe I can do that with a tail. And as you can see, it is flexible. However, it does crack after 2 days. As you can see, these were bending perfectly on the first day, and after 2 days, boom, crack here and there. So it does retain some flexibility, but not like that. This one is another foam clay. This one's a little bit more sturdier, and I believe this is the one that she used, like same exact brand. The other one was a little bit more squishier, and this one's a lot more dense. So this one you can definitely sand and stuff. Then I was like, you know what? Maybe we can just do a classic fabric tail. But the only obstacle, because of all the details I want this to have, all of those details like the filigree, the Baroque detailing, they also need to be bendable and they need to be malleable, and obviously the foam clay did not work. The only way for this to work is to really have the details molded in silicone. And I was ready to do that, however, I'm not able to source every single material that I needed to do a whole chemistry magic because of Miss Rona existing right now. So unfortunately, yeah, we're out of luck. I even went ahead and tried this mold. This one is a mold maker, and obviously it's silicone. I'm like, oh, maybe I can use a mold maker, but it was too dense and it really just, it doesn't work. It won't work. So those were pretty much the hardships as to why this project took longer than expected. I even considered making a ball jointed style of tail. If you guys look up BJD mermaid tails or snake tails, they do exist. However, because of the ornaments, the filigree design, it just won't work with the BJD style. So you know what, we're just gonna do a sculpture. So let's go ahead and drill onto her tentacle so we can add a wire for the base of the sculpture. And like her body, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap some foil around the wire to act as a base for her tail. Even if it's a tail, we don't want it to be completely clayed out because we don't really need her tentacles to be made out of pure clay. And now we have everything covered with foil, we can go ahead and play around with the poses. Obviously, this will be a permanent pose, so make sure that composition and the pose makes sense to you. If you guys are trying to redo this, you know, just make sure it's cute, it's pretty. And again, with our epoxy sculpt, we can cover every single foil part with clay. And like her body, I did this in 2 layers. One is just to completely cover everything, and then the second one is to really build the mass, the shape, and some details. And after another day, the clay should be completely dried. This is still the first layer of epoxy for the tentacles. As you can see, the bottom is still kind of sloppy because I couldn't really get in there because everything was still kind of wet. But now everything is dry, so you can really patch it up and shape it and kind of perfect the shape of the tentacles. I was starting to panic at this point because I was running out of epoxy sculpt. Literally, I had to order some from Amazon and it got here after like 5 days. So I had to make use of these ones left, and this is a 4-pound tub, as you can see. So all in all, it was just a mess, you know? So while I finesse the underneath of her tentacles, I'm also sculpting some lines into it for her suckers to go, kind of like as a guide for later, and it's also kind of a cool look. And after another day, it should be completely dried and cured. As you can see, the body is right, the tentacles are posed to my liking. So now let's go ahead and sand everything to make it all smooth. For me, it was a lot easier to sand this while it was wet, so I kept on spraying it as I sand. Also, it prevents a lot of dust from flying everywhere. So yeah, that's just a little tip. If you guys prefer sanding it wet, you may. Let's move on for now from the body and let's work on the ornate, the filigrees, the details. And this is one of them. It is handcrafted and it is in plastic. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and mold it so I can actually use it on Ursula with epoxy sculpt. So as usual, we're just gonna go ahead and mix 2 equal parts together, and you do want to mix this really fast because it cures in like 15 to 20 minutes. And now we have a mold of it. Look at that. We can now use epoxy sculpt and sculpt it onto Ursula's body. And this one is the same exact concept, it's just different brand of mold putty. And this one actually cures in 5 hours, so this one was a little slower. It took some time to get this right. After demolding it, it is completely perfect. So here's all of the handcrafted filigree and ornate designs. I ordered all of them from an artist on Etsy. Their name is Handcraft Island. Obviously I will put the links down below, but they provide so many more. These are the only ones that I kind of measured that may work on Ursula, and like with measurements and stuff like that. And everything is just so detailed. They're great for doll houses, they're great for scrapbooks and all that, but it's just so insane how detailed they are. So make sure you guys check them out. So now I'm just using epoxy sculpt on the mold that I made, and I can directly place it onto her body. Obviously you can't just like plop it in there and expect it to adhere. You do have to manually sculpt the sides of every single filigree and ornate design so that it adheres securely. So this part was very fun. I had so much fun kind of placing things around. It did take some trial and error because initially when I was sketching it out, the things that I thought were gonna fit in certain places actually did not. Like I knew this shell over here is gonna go to her butt, but I didn't know that the shell in the front will be the shell in the front, you know what I mean? So I had to do some trial and error to make things kind of match, but it was really fun placing these. In this part, she was actually kind of looking like a Grecian sculpture because of the color of the epoxy clay. Like, you know, the whole stone look. I'm like, oh my god, that's kind of cool. And one major challenge was trying to capture everything on camera. As you can see, Ursula is literally suspended on air. I have her placed on top of a epoxy sculpt container, and I'm literally on the floor trying to sculpt all of her suckers underneath.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
That was a whole Trenta cup of water that fell onto my desk, onto my workspace, onto my laptop, and honestly, I'm just so glad that it did not break any of her tentacles because I was furious, but I would have been going Hulk, you know? And after another day, yes, everything is completed and dried and cured. All of her suckers on the sides are completely cured, and then the filigree and ornate designs are placed appropriately. Now we just have to work on the suction cups underneath her. Now I know that real tentacles only have 2 rows of suction cups, but you know, I got a little carried away and I'm like, I was kind of liking the look, because obviously she's not real anyway and it is a lot more ornate looking, so I'm like, you know what, let's just go for it. So I just went with like literally like circles of epoxy sculpt, and I took kind of like a Q-tip and I just punched through it. For me, doing this was actually very satisfying, but for some people they may hate it, so I'm really sorry for that. I did put a warning. Hopefully you guys skipped it. And yes, after another day, she is completely dried. All of her suckers underneath are dried so she can actually stand on her own. She had to be dried completely upside down, so that was a risk. So now we can go ahead and fill in the negative spaces of her body with hot glue. You guys know I love doing that for texture. I really want to maximize the texture and the details of Ursula, so I'm like, you know what, why not whip it out? Even though I am obsessed with how this Ursula is coming along, like the whole angle of her being nice, being in the palace of Atlantica, you know, just being a good sea witch, one of these days, I need to make a pure evil Ursula, like really evil, witchy, sea witch, like souls everywhere. That would be iconic, and obviously the really heavy makeup is going to be my bailiwick. And now sculpting and detailing the entire body is completed. And I'm so happy with how it turned out so far. So now let's go ahead and move on to her head. As always, I'm using acetone to remove her factory paint. You can also use nail polish remover if it has acetone in it. And just make sure every single thing is completely clean. So I did spray this with one coat of Mr. Super Clear before applying the purple lavender paint. For skin repainting, you want to work with thin layers. I believe this face took me at least maybe 7 to 8 layers, watered down acrylic paint, and I find that to be a lot better. And after that, I do spray this with 3 coats of Mr. Super Clear so that our pencils and pigments will glide through her face. So obviously I keep referencing Marie Antoinette, but really, I just want her to look very soft, demure. She's roaming around the palace of Atlantica, so why not give her that regal essence? And then her having 2 different color eyes, or heterochromia, is a direct reference to Flotsam and Jetsam. They both have 2 different color eyes. One is black, one is yellow. And I asked Instagram what's a better color combination, whether yellow or green, or yellow or blue. Literally, it was almost 50-50, by green winning by like 9%. And I was like, you know what? It actually kind of makes sense because Flotsam and Jetsam were green in the animated show. So I'm like, I like that, so let's go for that. And Ursula, being the drag queen that she was inspired to be, was rocking blue eyeshadow. Hers was actually a bit more smoky, but for this one I wanted to be kind of pastel-y, and I just wanted to be very subtle. And now it's time for the rouge, and this one is a mixture of pink and lavender, and as you can see I am focusing it on the apples of her cheeks because that is the Rococo style of blushing. Technically she is going to have some sort of lipstick look in the end, however I want it to be very soft and kind of smoked out almost, so I'm just going to keep layering the pastels on her lips. And now I'm gonna shade her entire head with some lavender and deep purples just to give the entire face some dimension. Since every single feature that I wanted has been mapped out, I can go back and forth with some details and some colors to just bring everything out. And now it's time for the eyeliner. You know, just a little bit, just a little wing here and there. I will be blurring this out later, so it's more diffused, but you know, I just had to have it. And now with white acrylic paint, I will be defining her teeth, her sclera, and also her catch lights. So I can't wait to watch Popin Atelier's Ariel because I have no idea what she has created for her. I'm so excited to see it. We both agreed to be completely surprised by it, so we just provided each other the silhouette and shadow of our dolls. But of course, anything Popin Atelier creates is iconic. And now it's time to flick those lashes, and yes, I'm using a really deep purple for this one, just because the black would have been really harsh. And we can't forget Madame de Ursula's iconic beauty mark. Of course, her skin needs to be shining, shimmering, splendid, so I am using the Pearl-X powders all over her skin. Literally her face, her body, all over, because it's needed. Her skin needs to be glowing. So every time I spray this with Mr. Super Clear, I would add Pearl-X to it so that it builds up. And to finish it off, let's go ahead and gloss up her lips. And now I'm done with Ursula's face, and I am obsessed with her eyes. I love her eyebrows. Her cheeks are so rosy, they're very Rococo the house, and her lips are literally kissable. Can we talk about her skin? That highlight. Wow. Pearl powders may be very difficult to work with, but the effect is really great. And here is a before and after of curvy Barbie lookalike Ariel with our Madame de Ursula. And now let's go back to her body yada. Obviously we also have to recolor this, so I had to spray this with Mr. Super Clear, and then I'm also layering her skin. We all know the struggle with painting body is that these joints over here, the shoulder joints, the elbow joints, they're all going to crack. It doesn't matter if you use paint, it doesn't matter if you use pastels, they're all going to crack regardless. So when designing this, I knew that this was going to happen, and that's why I gave her sleeves. After a few more sprays of Mr. Super Clear, we can go ahead and use our pastels to give her body some shadow, some blushing, some additional detail, just to make it look like it's real skin. Well, you know, as real as possible. And then after that, we can move on to her body with our acrylic paint. This one is just kind of like a base, so I want every single thing, like the filigree, her tentacles, her suckers, everything to be pitch black, just so that it has a good base and none of the epoxy sculpt is visible. It was actually kind of fun painting the suckers all black because it was looking like caviar, and I'm like, ooh, fancy. And now I'm gonna paint all of her suckers with purple. And then I'm gonna go ahead and dry brush the negative spaces of her body with this deep navy color so that it reflects blue instead of like the black. And then I'm painting a layer of metallic purple all over her suckers so it looks like it's wet. And using the same metallic purple, I am dry brushing the negative spaces again. So this one just really adds dimension to her body. And then I'm painting every single filigree and ornate design with this gold acrylic paint. It's really unique actually because the base color of the paint is purple, but then when you apply it, it's gold. As you can see, there are some purple hints here and there. So it's really perfect for Ursula. And of course, we can't forget the Pearl-X powder all over her skin. And now let's go ahead and work on her sleeves. Now, obviously, art stores are closed right now. There was no way to really source fabric, so this is what I have in my inventory. So I'm going to be using this 4-way stretch, and then I will put a lavender mesh on top of it. I really love sewing stretchy fabric onto dolls just because it's a lot easier and you don't really have to configure sizing and the mathematics behind it. So, you know, you guys know. Now I'm gonna go ahead and layer this mesh on top before I close the sleeves together. Now I'm not gonna lie, I suck so much that it took me 5 tries to get this right, to get the sleeves right. It's literally a tube, you guys. But I'm like, the first one, it was too small. The second one, I forgot the mesh. The third one, it just wasn't right. So I'm like, oh my god, I suck so much. And now the sleeves are done. I was actually doing this in front of a Instagram live stream and everyone was like, it looks like a mermaid tail, and there you have it. And now for our Nautilus necklace, I noticed that when I took a mold of this, there's this mini part over here that's kind of looking like a Nautilus shell. So I took a mold and I'm just kind of like finessing it, and I'm pretty much using it as a base for the Nautilus shell. After it's dried, we can go ahead and paint it. At first I was going for gold, but then it didn't really match, so I went for black first, and then I dry brushed it with the blue gold thing. As you can see, you see more of the blue here, but it turns out to be gold in the end. It's really cool. And then I'm taking this ruffle ribbon, and I'm just gonna add snaps to the back of it. And then I'm gonna paint it to match the sleeves. I'm gonna try my best to kind of match it and see if we can do it. And then after it's dried, we can go ahead and accessorize it. And now her choker is done. So per my sketch, I am adding a bunch of pearls, and that's quotation, pearls, just small beads, and this is the smallest that I have so far. Like I said, I can't really go out and about and buy art materials. So this is what I had, and while I was doing this, I was already thinking, it's not looking right. The beads are making everything look too busy, and not like the good busy that I was going for. This is like overwhelmingly busy for me. So bottom line, I had to scratch it off. I did not like it. I had 2 attempts doing this. I'm not going to show the other one because it was the same exact thing, but the other one was just a smaller bead, but it did not look like pearls. So this one, I'm like, crap, I don't like how it looks. So the one I'm putting right now is actually the beads that I used all over her body that I had removed, but I do want it over here. I love the whole cascading beads effect. However, I think for her body, I'm just gonna repair it and match it as much as I can, and I'll just leave it alone. As Coco Chanel once said, "Before leaving the house, a lady should look in the mirror and remove one accessory." After that, let's go ahead and work on her wig. As you can see, there is continuity errors throughout this video because I was trying to work on this doll strategically. I was like, okay, while that's drying, I'm gonna work on this. While that's drying, I'm gonna work on that. So that's what I did. And for this one, I will show you guys how I make my wig caps. So first I wrap the head around with saran wrap to protect it, and then I take a really soft kind of cotton fabric. This one is just a scrap. You can literally use like an old t-shirt or something that you guys have laying around, and then I just wrap that around the doll's head. And then I just take some rubber bands to make sure it's completely secured and as tight as possible. And then I take my Elmer's glue all and I just coat the entire head. So this one I do at least maybe 4 coats just so that it's really sturdy and really hard. So if you guys know that you're gonna be dealing with hair, rerooting hair, like if you're gonna be maneuvering with hair later, you want to do it before the face up to prevent the face up from cracking. If you guys didn't know, if you have a face up and you like squished too hard, or if the face stuff has so much layers, because for me, I do a lot of layers, it is prone to cracking. So I want to do as much prevention as I can. And now it's time to create the hairline, and for this one, it's actually kind of fun. You do want to kind of overcompensate just to make sure that you're not cutting too much, because it's a lot easier to, keep cutting than to replace a hairline. And voila! Our wig cap is done. Now I'm taking this styro egg and I will be gluing it on top of the wig cap. Obviously we want the Marie Antoinette hair, the really outrageous, really big, almost comical hair, and I keep adding more foams to it, and this is kind of what I ended up with. It's literally like stacked styrofoam, and honestly, iconic. And now let's go ahead and make her hair. I'm just taking this white acrylic yarn. As you can see, it's really cool. I actually wanted to use some glitter, but I don't think that's gonna take heat that well. And I'm just tying it around this wire hanger. And first I'm using my plastic pet brush to kind of detangle it. And then we can go with our metallic pet brush to fine-tune everything. This one will take a lot of the length, but that's okay. When we go ahead and straighten it, make sure to squeeze and pull. You want to kind of pull as much as possible. And then I'm creating the wefts by hot gluing it and squeezing it with this silicone base. And here are all of the wefts that I made, and yes, let's hope that it's enough. Continuity error! And now let's go ahead and glue the wefts one by one. Because this is an updo, a really big updo, we want to be strategic with how we place the wefts. Some of them will be angled down, some of them will be angled up, so you just kind of want to play around with it. And then I just combed everything up to make sure that every single corner is covered. And yes, she's giving us troll realness. And then I'm just gonna curl her hair using my heated metal chopstick. Be careful with this part. If you try this, it's really hot. And the main goal for this one is just to give her hair some texture, because having the hair too straight will really not give off the Rococo vibe. And then after you finish curling everything, we just want to go ahead and brush it up and kind of place it accordingly, appropriately, and just kind of like style it. And this is where I glue things in place. And now I'm just doing some finishing touches with styling her hair, like curling her tendrils, giving her some baby hair, and fine-tuning the party in the back look, the tail in the back. Now this is the foam clay that I used initially for the tentacle that did not work. However, I'm like, maybe it can work with flotsam and jetsam. The good and fun part about this is that it's so squishy and very like flexible. As you can see, it does not break off. So you can really create really thin sculptures with this. So you can leave it like that and like just keep it dried. But I'm gonna take this and also some wire and use that as an armature, and we will be creating flotsam and jetsam. And now the wire should be completely inside and hidden, hopefully. And now let's go ahead and work on their fins. So it's really cool because these foam clay can be really flat and almost paper-like, and then you can adhere them with water. So I'm just taking water and I'm just kind of gluing it with water. So it is kind of like epoxy sculpt. However, with epoxy sculpt, if you do something this thin, it will crack and it will just break. And not to mention that these are virtually weightless. Like, they're so not heavy at all. They're literally like light as a feather. And now our flotsam and jetsam are completed. As you can see, I already kind of posed them so they will fit perfectly with the hair, and now it's time to paint it. I do want them to mirror the color story of the filigrees and ornate design on her body, so I'm starting off with a black base, and then I will paint it gold. And to really make it obvious that it's flotsam and jetsam, I am going to go ahead and add their glowing eyes. And now let's go ahead and finish this off. So this is such a crowning glory moment. Like, things are coming together and they're looking like my sketch. I mean, you know, somewhat like my sketch. And it's such a satisfying moment seeing everything kind of like puzzle together. I am keeping the pearls on her hair like how I sketched it because it does have that bubble looking effect. And then I couldn't find the footage of me painting her fingernails pink first, but I painted it pink first and then I am giving her some French tips. And I'm also painting in some rings. A little pearl detail. And of course, we can't forget the Pearlex powders. Just a few more finishing touches and we are done with Madame de Ursula.